welcome back to my channel. Today's video is how to do the splits. So I get a lot of questions on how I work my splits, good prep poses, good prep flows. So splits essentially are working on the hip flexors, the glutes, the hamstrings, the abductors. So the whole of this lower body area needs to be really warmed up and need a lot of flexibility to be able to go into the splits. Possibly anatomically, it might be impossible for some people to get into that full splits pose, but that doesn't mean you can't improve where you are at the moment if you want to, and that doesn't mean that you can't work towards getting a better split. So today I'm just going to run through 3 of my favorite poses that you can do daily in preparation for the splits. That's just going to help flexibility in this whole lower region, and then do a few drills on how you can get into the splits and how you can improve your split if you're looking to get a little bit closer to the ground. So I'm going to be using 2 blocks. If you don't have blocks, then you can use books. I have before used dumbbells or weights. Essentially, you just need something that's just going to lift you up and that's just going to elevate and support you a little bit. So anything that you grab that'll just give you that bit of stability and support is absolutely great. Okay, so number 1, if you're not very flexible in the hips and the hamstrings, then you can use blocks in this stretch. So I will show you. So starting off in our low lunge. So start off with the right foot forwards. Take that bend in the knees. So you're stacking the knee over the ankle here. What we don't want to do is shoot forward. And then just shuffle that back knee in as much as you need to. So it might be that you're really tight in your hamstrings and you need to bring that knee in and start off here. If not, then just start to gradually shift that knee back, just so we're extending into that a little bit more. So this can be really tight here. We want to stay on the fingertips here. Again, if that's not accessible, then take bricks or blocks and just use them as support. You might find as you begin to get more flexible that you can lower them and then you can lose them altogether. Again, it's just practice. So if you are either a way off or even just a little way off, then it is regular practice and regular doing these drills that is going to help on your splits. And then from here, we're just going to come into our half split. So start to shift the weight backwards just a little bit. Try and keep the hips square. We're going to move the hands backwards as well. Again, this is that point where you might want to grab those blocks. So you want to really flex the toes up to the ceiling in this half split. So this is into our hamstring, so really deep hamstring. Keep the chest lifted, and this is where we're going to try and take the chest down towards the shin, towards the leg. That's going to really deepen that stretch into the hamstring. So start off in your low lunge for about 5 breaths, come back into your half split for about 5 breaths, and then just flowing between the 2. So we inhale, lift into low lunge, and then exhale, float back, half split. Inhale, low lunge. Exhale, half split. Just do that one more time. So inhale, low lunge. Exhale, half split. Just doing that on the other side. So starting off with that low lunge. Again, maybe taking those blocks or just coming down here. So 5 breaths here. Remember, in adjusting that back knee as you need to. Back foot is flat onto the ground, and then really ground into this front foot. So we're really opening up into the hip flexors here. Also feeling a stretch in the glute on the left leg. So just take 2 more breaths here. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more breath. Inhale. Then exhale. Start to straighten that front leg, toes to ceiling. If it's too much to straighten this leg completely, keep the knee soft very slightly. As long as you can feel a stretch and a lengthening in the hamstring, then it's right for you. So remember to walk those hands back. Maybe take those props to elevate. And then gently start to take the chest down towards that thigh. So deepening that stretch. If it hurts or you feel any pain, then stop and just back out of the pose slightly. Remember, we don't want to force or push anything. This is a gradual process that's going to take time. It's not something that happens overnight. It does take patience. So moving between the two here. Inhale. And exhale, lengthen. Inhale. Exhale, lengthen. One last time, inhale. Exhale, lengthen. Then moving on to drill number 2. So we're just going to move into a forward fold here. So again, take your block, take your brick, starting with a forward fold. So we hinge from the hips, we dive down, and we're really creating space here. Soften the knees as much as you need to take a nice stretch into the hamstrings. If the hands don't reach the floor, again, taking that block or that brick and really shifting the weights forwards into the toes here. As you shift the weight forwards, the hips get a little bit higher, the hamstrings stretch a little bit more. If you are more open in the hamstrings, maybe taking the hands down and then tucking the chin in here and really shifting the weight forwards into the toes, stretching into those hamstrings. From here, we're going to come into a half forward fold. So if you're on the block here, we just inhale, lifting up the chest. So we're flattening out the back here. So we've still got this nice stretch in the hamstrings, flat back. So we inhale, we lift, we exhale, we fold. Seeing if we can deepen this forward fold. Inhale, lift. And exhale, fold. So that's number 2. Lastly, moving on to number 3, we're going to move into our half pigeon pose. So starting off from our downward facing dog. So hands shoulder width apart, take the feet about hip width apart, lift the right leg up to start, and then bring the right toes towards the left wrist, the knee towards the right wrist. I'll link here to a tutorial on how to pigeon pose. So if this is something that you're struggling with, I have a tutorial on how to perfect your pigeon pose. So just settling here. If you need to bring that heel a little bit closer into body, that's absolutely fine. So staying in this pigeon pose for around 5 to 10 breaths. So this is really deep opening into the hip flexors. You can also feel it again into the glutes, into the hamstrings. So we're working on that whole area. And then when you're in your splits, your back leg is obviously replicating how we are here in our pigeon pose. So just taking a gaze behind, we want the back foot to be pressed down onto the floor, the back leg nice and straight. The hips are nice and square. So let's just take one more breath here. Inhale. And exhale. So coming up onto the hands. Stepping back, downward dog. Just same on the other side. So left leg comes up this time and then reaches forward. Settling down into our pigeon pose. Just checking that back leg is straight out. Top of the foot's pressed down into the floor and then coming down onto the forearms. If it's too much to come down onto the forearms, again, take that prop and maybe just resting the head down here. You can take the forearm down, rest the head here. If that's too much and you're still really too tight, then you can always take blocks under the forearms if that feels good. So we'll just take one more breath here. Inhale. And exhale. Loosen the props. Take it back. Downward dog. Okay, so those are drills. This should be nice and warm. You can run through those stretches and those drills as many times as you need to. Spend as long as you need to there, really warming up the hips, into the glutes, into the hamstrings. So make sure the whole of the lower body area is nice and warm. As well as the hips, the hamstrings, the lower body, core strength and core stability is really important in the splits. Your core stability, your balance is what's going to hold the upper body and the torso upright in the splits. So remember really connecting with that core as well. So to come down into our splits, again, using those props as you need to, we're going to start in our low lunge. So the same as we started before in our low lunge. So we've got the back knee on the floor. The front foot is down on the floor to start with. Top of the back foot is pressed down into the floor. So from here, we're just going to heel toe those feet forwards a little bit. We're just going to start to shift that back knee back just a little bit. So pointing those toes on the back foot and then taking those blocks if we need to. Just to start, we're going to start straightening out that front leg. So just inching forwards, hands either side of the hip, and then just get to that point where you feel that deep stretch in the hamstring. If it's too much, then stopping here. This is that point where you don't force and you don't push anymore. We don't want pain. So just staying here for as long as you can. If you can, then maybe just lowering down. Again, getting to that point. If that point's here and you're this far away from the floor, then just using those blocks for support and just finding yourself here for as many breaths as you can, maybe 10 breaths. If you can and you are all the way down, then just coming here again, maybe using those blocks for a little bit of support and stability, really deepening into this core and then easing out. So when we're in our split, wherever we are, really working into that core. So again, it's going to stabilize you, it's going to keep you upright. It's okay if you've got weight in the hands just while you're preparing, while you're warming up and while you're getting comfortable in this pose. Gradually over time, as we find a little bit more flexibility, as we find a little bit more comfort in our splits, we'll start to take a little less weight into our hands. Remember, this is a process, it's not something that happens overnight. So now on to the other side. So starting in our low lunge. So that back toe is pointed, taking the blocks and just start to work that back leg back a bit. You'll also find that you have one side maybe that's a little bit more comfortable than the other. So this side for me is really not comfortable. It's really challenging, and 9 times out of 10 I can't access full splits on this side. So starting off here, I can really start to feel that deep stretch in my hamstrings. Do I know I need to stop, or do I feel that my body can go a little bit further? It can go a little bit further, so I come onto the heel and I'll just take it down a little bit. Still feeling okay there. So I'm deep into my core. Start to bring my right hip back a little bit, bring my left hip forward a little bit. Can I go any further today? I can go to there. I can start to feel my hamstring on my right leg. Getting really uncomfortable now, so I know not to push it. Ego would make me push it that bit further. Would I get into the full splits? Probably yes. Would it feel good? For a second, maybe. My ego would feel good, but my body would really not feel good. So it knows not to go there today. So just taking one more breath here. And then easing out. Another really good point to point out is when you're there, when you feel that you're really close, we have a tendency sometimes to bounce a little bit. Please never do that, because that can really cause havoc with your muscles. If your body wants to go somewhere, it will let you go there. If it's really resisting you, then please, please, please do not force it to do anything that it doesn't want to do. So those are your drills and your preparatory stretches and a few tips on how you can work towards your splits. I hope you find them helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Give it a like and please subscribe to my channel to see more tutorials like this. Anything that you want to see or anything that you might find helpful, then please again do let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Namaste.